If your soul were forced to witness every life lost because of your decisions, would you have the courage to keep on living? I heard the explosion before I realized I had lost all sensation. A crushing force slammed into my chest like a sledgehammer, then silence. Strangely, I could still see. I saw chunks of concrete floating through the air like snow, and the terrified eyes of a young girl I had never met. Then I saw myself lying on the ground, motionless, blood seeping from my temple, my right arm twisted like a broken branch. In that moment, I knew I was dead. Why me? Why on the very day I arrived in that region, not as a soldier, not as a spy, but as a civilian observer working with a nonprofit? I was just a middle-aged man trying to understand war, to write its truth into history. Or maybe it wasn't me who chose the truth. Maybe truth had chosen me and was about to carve itself into my soul through death. My name is James Cartwright. I'm 47 years old and once served as a strategic advisor to the United States government during its Middle East campaigns. I never ordered anyone to be killed, but I helped design the paths that led to those deaths. And now, I was lying in an Israeli military outpost, hit by an Iranian missile strike, my heart having stopped for nearly 3 minutes. Have you ever wondered what you carry with you when you die? Is it your achievements, your medals, your praise, or is it something far more haunting? The faces that emerge from the shadows, the ones you never learned by name but remember all too clearly by the look in their eyes just before they died. I didn't know why I could still perceive anything. I didn't understand why the world had gone so quiet. There was no sound, no pain. Only one thing remained, unmistakable and real. I was standing outside my body, and something was beginning. But what held my gaze wasn't the blood on my head. It was the faint, shifting light that appeared at the far end of the room. And from that moment, I understood something I had never allowed myself to believe. I had never truly known who I was until I died. I didn't know if I was floating or falling. There was no weight, but it wasn't gentle either. I passed through the ceiling as if matter no longer held any boundaries. The world below became a tear in reality where time and space spiraled backward like a whirlpool. There was no sound, only images drifting by like torn fragments of memory, and I was pulled into them. I saw an Iranian child screaming beside her mother's body amid collapsed bricks. I saw an Israeli boy clutching his father's uniform, a soldier returned in a coffin. I saw men praying, women standing in silence, and souls packed tightly between the flames of a dying world, unaware that they were already gone. Then I saw myself again, seated at my desk all those years ago, editing a threat analysis report on missile risks from Tehran. I remembered clearly how I deleted a single line, just one line, to get the draft approved faster. That one line might have saved a school. Why was I being shown all this? Who was allowing me to see it? Was this punishment, or was it my final chance to understand what I had never dared to face in life? I always believed I was a rational man, someone who made decisions based on data and maps. But data doesn't cry. Maps don't bleed. Only people do. And I had forgotten that for far too long. As I drifted through that spiritual desert, I realized there is nothing lonelier than a soul unaware of the pain it caused, and nothing more painful than being forced to witness it all in silence. Yet in the middle of that barren wilderness, a brilliant light appeared. It wasn't the sun. It was the one thing my heart had denied for nearly 50 years, the presence of a being I never dared to believe was truly real. The light wasn't blinding like I expected. It was soft, like the first breath after nearly drowning. It didn't come from one direction but radiated from everywhere at once, seeping through every memory, every wound, every lie I had ever told myself. And at the center of that light was him. I didn't need anyone to tell me. There was no sacred music, no halo, no throne. Just a man standing there, his eyes piercing, as if they could see through the very core of my being. I knew with absolute certainty it was Jesus. He didn't scold me. He didn't say, "I am your Lord." He simply asked, "What do you believe makes someone truly strong?" I opened my mouth, but no sound came out. Then he said, "Strength is not in conquering your enemy. It is in the ability to love them even when they don't deserve it." I began to tremble. Not from fear, but because in those eyes I saw every decision I had ever signed, every report I had approved, every justification for violence that I once believed was righteous. I saw bodies. I saw the eyes of children in their final moments. I saw myself as a young boy, once terrified of war, and then later, a man who helped prolong it. Jesus raised his hand. He didn't touch me, yet everything around me turned into a vision. I saw the future. Children are growing up with hatred. Soldiers no longer believed in the cause behind their orders. Generations repeating the same broken lessons. I saw a world being devoured not by bombs, but by the inability to forgive. And I saw my son in uniform, pulling the trigger on a teenager he had never met. I broke down. How do I stop this from happening? I asked in despair. He didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "You will go back. Not to warn, not to change the world, but to change yourself and to plant the seeds I place in your heart today." Then he touched me, not with his hand, but with something that felt like truth. And I began to fall. Part for the future that could be when he touched me. I didn't fall in the physical sense. It was as if my soul was dropped into a vision of the future I had never dared to imagine. I wasn't sent back right away. I drifted through a hazy realm where time no longer moved in a straight line. And there, I saw a future without mercy. I saw children born among rubble, calling war normal. I saw nations no longer needing reasons to hate, because hatred had become an inherited instinct. I saw a city burning not from bombs, but from people tearing each other apart like wild animals, no longer able to restrain themselves. I saw religion turned into a weapon, ideals used as masks for revenge, and justice replaced by silent compromise. I saw men like me, who once believed they were just doing their job, watching their sons kill each other in a war with no victors. I saw tears no longer stirring compassion because the world had wept too long. I saw humanity functioning like a cold machine, where hearts had been replaced by soulless logic. And worst of all, I saw my son Jacob, 19 years old. His eyes were like stone, holding a rifle, pulling the trigger. A teenage boy collapsed. His face was still soft with youth. And Jacob whispered the words I had heard thousands of times in my career, now slicing through my soul like a blade. I was just following orders. I screamed, but no one heard. I ran to him, but no one saw. I fell to my knees, hands over my head, crying out in agony, "Please give me a chance to stop this." And at that moment, the light returned. Not the light of Jesus, but a light from within me, something I had never believed existed in myself. It was faint, but unmistakable. And then, through all the chaos, a voice rose not as a command, not as thunder, but as a whisper deep inside. "You have seen the worst of what humanity becomes when it chooses retaliation. Now I will show you what could be, if they choose forgiveness over vengeance, dialogue over bloodshed." When I sank into my deepest despair, Jesus reached out once more. Everything around me faded, then reversed like a film being rewound. The sorrowful future disappeared like morning mist dissolving in sunlight. And I was shown another future. I saw borders once scarred by hatred transformed into trade corridors, where Iranians and Israelis exchanged dates and wine instead of rockets and bullets. I saw children playing soccer on soil that once bore the scorch marks of bombs, their laughter rising like a tide that washed away the last echoes of gunfire buried in memory. I saw a global summit, where leaders who once called each other enemies now sat side by side, listening to an orphan boy read a poem about his mother. No one interrupted. No one left their seat. Because, in his words, they saw themselves. They saw the humanity that war had once stripped away. I saw armies not dismantled, but repurposed into rescue forces. I saw former soldiers holding the hands of the elderly, guiding them safely across streets. I saw imams, rabbis, and Christian pastors bowing together in a single shared prayer. "Teach us how to love." I saw a world where pain was not denied, but transformed. Where survivors were not forgotten, but became guides for those still learning how to live. And I saw myself not behind a podium, but sitting in a circle of children who listened with wide eyes. I told stories. They laughed. One asked, "Did you die?" And I answered, "Yes. But the miracle is that I came back to tell you this." Jesus looked at me, not with the authority of a ruler, but with the gaze of a friend who had patiently waited for me to understand. He said, "This is not prophecy. This is potential. If humanity chooses love over hate, forgiveness over vengeance, dialogue over bloodshed, then this is the future they can create." I nodded. My heart had never felt so light. Because for the first time, I understood. The future is not what happens. It is what we choose to plant through every word, every action, every embrace, and every silence that chooses peace instead of retaliation. I came to in the smell of antiseptic and the steady beep of a heart monitor. The hospital ceiling felt cold, yet my vision blurred with warm tears I could not hold back. They weren't from physical pain. My heart was alive for the first time. A nurse shouted when my vitals spiked. The doctor called it a medical miracle. I knew it was an intervention beyond anything science can frame. 3 minutes without a heartbeat, for minutes without breath, a body battered by the blast, and I was still here, not to resume the old life but to begin an entirely new journey. I refused every media request, turned down calls to return to the Pentagon, and sent in my resignation. Partners were shocked, family confused, yet I felt peace. One more day in that post would betray my soul. I packed lightly and went back to my father's small farm in Montana, the place of cornfields and church bells from my childhood. There I wrote down everything I had seen, heard, and felt, not for sale or fame, but to preserve a truth the world is too busy to pause and hear. I began sharing my story, first in the little church, then at the public library, and finally at a human rights forum in California. No slides, no expert jargon, only a plain account, and each time more listeners wept. I am no preacher and claim no title of evangelist. I am simply a man who died and chose not to live the same way once returned. I tell anyone willing to listen that the human heart is the greatest battlefield, and if we do not learn inner forgiveness, we will replay the same wars again and again. But then an invitation arrived that I could not refuse. A special symposium featuring 2 guests no one imagined would share a table, an Israeli veteran and an Iranian refugee, and they wanted me to stand between them. The hall held barely 100 seats, yet the air felt as heavy as if 1,000 years of unresolved history had gathered there. 2 men faced each other. One, a former Israeli soldier, had lost his child in an explosion in Tel Aviv. The other, an Iranian refugee, had lost his wife when a drone strike hit a residential block in Tehran. Though they had never met, hatred had shaped their lives. They stood for opposite sides of the war stories I once helped draft into policy reports. I was invited not as a keynote speaker, but as a witness. Stepping to the front, I did not address the audience first. I looked directly at those 2 men. With no script in hand, I said, I once believed war was necessary to keep peace. Now I know no war is truly won while children are still screaming in human hearts. Silence filled the room. I shared my near-death experience, the gaze of Jesus, the dying child of war, and the dark future I had seen. No one interrupted, laughed, or doubted, because truth spoken from the soul needs no persuasion. When I finished, the Israeli soldier rose and walked slowly toward the Iranian. He halted, eyes wet, and without a word placed a small charred cloth in front of him. I pulled this from the rubble where my son died. I no longer need to hold it. Today I choose to hold what you just said instead. The Iranian trembled, tears falling in silence, and for the first time they shook hands. It was not for politics or publicity. They saw each other not as enemies, but as fathers, husbands, survivors. From that moment, everything changed. James Cartwright, once an architect of conflict, became a teller of a peace vision. I do not claim to save the world, I only plant seeds. Each story sows another seed. I may never see them sprout, yet I believe when the soil is soft enough and hearts are open, those seeds will grow into forests. Someone asked, "Do you truly believe you met Jesus?" I did not answer directly. I simply replied, "If a single voice can make enemies lower their weapons, do you need proof of who spoke?"